And they probably dislike having a bunch of annoying ads in the New York Times more than does sort of a marginal reader of the New York Times somewhere out in the middle of the country, right? And so the inframarginal readers value the, dislike the ads more than the marginal readers do. That means that from the fence distortion, there's going to be too many ads, too low of a price for advertising, right? On the other hand, market power tends to increase the price for advertising. So in that case, market power over the advertisers might actually be a good thing because it offsets the excessive number of ads that consumers would otherwise have to sort through. On the other hand, on credit cards, the inframarginal user of a credit card is someone who really likes using their credit card at stores, right? And they're going to put a lot more value on a store accepting a credit card than is someone who really doesn't care whether they're using the credit card or not, right? And so in that case, the market power over the merchants that leads there to be a higher price to merchants is going to make things even worse. So which direction things go in depends on the nature of the differences between consumers. So, and the key thing is all of these distortions are happening to the same people, and so they can either cancel out each other, and so in the end it doesn't really, everything's okay, or they can make each other worse, in which case the distortions are even worse than the standard monopoly. And the other key feature here is that some users get subsidized if they're bringing lots of value to other users. So what is the equation for pricing in this case? Well, price is going to be equal to the marginal cost. This is really just combining the two things we had before, plus the Cournot distortion, right? You mark up your prices. This is that P prime times N that we had before, or the negative N over M. And then you're going to get a discount below that, which is going to be equal to the sum over all the other groups of consumers. So for the consumers and advertisers case, this would just be the number of advertisers times the average value that having a additional reader, brings to the advertisers. Yeah?
These distortions still exist if you price discriminate?
No, that would make them much better. Not necessarily fully better, but if you're price discriminating, you're able to extract more of the value that the inframarginal guys are getting. And so that can make these distortions much less severe. Okay, so that was a case where I was just saying, how much do you value having one more person read your newspaper, right? But the problem is, you don't pay more to advertise to them, right? So let me give you a couple of examples of this. Why are soap operas called soap operas? Does anyone know the story?
Wasn't it because they used to play soap commercials in between the shows?
Exactly. And so why then would it make sense in the times when they were doing it to make soap operas so melodramatic?
So that women can watch them and then they would buy soap.
Yeah, because women used to be in charge of buying all the household stuff, right? And so you made the soap operas very melodramatic to appeal to the people who were in charge of buying soap. So you could sell them to the soap manufacturers, right? American Express offers lots of travel services. Why do you think, does someone want to say why they think American Express offers so many travel services to go along with their credit cards? Come on, it's the same logic. No? Yeah, go ahead, Marie.
Businessmen?
Yeah, because businessmen use their cards a ton. They have tons of expenses, and they also have to travel a lot. So if you offer them travel services, you get the people who are going to use the card the most, and therefore make the most money for you off the merchants who have to pay every time you use the card there to use the card, right? So this also happens in cases that aren't platforms. So if you think about how much insurance coverage I'm going to offer if I'm running an insurance plan. I might want to reduce the amount of coverage because I know that the people who are most sick are going to be the ones who are going to most value having more coverage. Similarly, I might want to force people to make a big down payment on their home because that is going to screen out people who don't have any cash on hand, who haven't planned very much for their future, and therefore who might likely go bankrupt and not pay me back, right? The key idea is we use instruments to sort out users. So we use higher melodrama to attract the lower quality show, but higher melodrama, in order to try to bring in the women so we can advertise soap to them. We offer more travel services, but maybe at a higher annual fee to try to bring in the businessmen. We offer less coverage, but maybe also lower premiums to try to bring in healthy people to our health plan, right? We might make a newspaper more right-wing if that's going to attract people who are higher income, right? Because then we can make more off the advertisers. So the key question is, how does a preference for something co-vary with the value that you bring to the platform, right? How do those things go together? So for people who haven't taken statistics, a standard measure of whether things go together is the covariance between them, right? So more precisely, is Osama here? So we can make this more precise in a simple model where we think about different people bringing different amounts of value to a platform. So the amount of value you bring is K of theta, and everyone has utility, which depends on the total amount of value that's brought. And that total amount of value is the integral over all the people who are participating of the amount of value that they bring. Right? Okay. So the key thing here is that users, this theta that makes users different, both affects how much they contribute, okay, and their utility. Right? So it both affects their preferences and their contribution. And the key is going to be the relationship between these two things. So I'm going to keep using all the things we've been using so far. The number of people on the margin, the market power, N over M, the average marginal utility of a marginal person, and the average marginal utility of an average person, except that now we're going to have to add in also the average contribution made by an average marginal person. Okay, but the key new thing is going to be the covariance between people's preferences and their contributions, given that they're a marginal consumer. And what do I mean by preferences and contributions? Well, the way we've been measuring people's preferences throughout the whole lecture, right, is their marginal utility, right? So we can plug in U prime for preferences. What's their contribution? Well, that's just K. So you can plug that in there, and here's the key quantity. Sigma is the covariance between marginal utility and contribution, given that you're a marginal consumer. And so it's the covariance along the margin between the marginal utility for something and the marginal contribution unit. And this shows up all over the place. I'm not going to give you a bunch of formulas, but I'm going to instead focus on a particular application. We may have a few minutes afterwards if you want me to go through the formulas and derivations. I can do that. Okay, so a nice example of this is given by a paper by, hey, Laurent Einov again. So I guess this is the third or fourth or fifth paper of his that you guys are looking at. And he's coming to give a talk on Wednesday. So if you want to see him in the flesh, this pledge of you can see him on Wednesday. Okay, so, and actually John Levin is the second author on this, who was the guy who presented on Monday. So we're getting deluged with these Stanford tests. Okay, so the logic, this logic applies outside of platforms, right? It's relevant anytime there are different consumers that are of different values. So one classic case of that is subprime auto loans. Why are different subprime auto borrowers of different value? Well, some people are going to default on their loans and some people are not, right? And while their credit score can give you a bit of a sense of that, there's lots of stuff you don't know about them, right? And so you can design the product dimensions like the down payment, the interest rate, and the price to try to attract the people who are likely to actually pay the loan back. And affecting the down payment, changing the down payment can affect the chance of default in two ways. One, which is probably less important, is it just reduces people's debt burden somewhat. So it makes it less likely that they're going to default because they have less to pay back. But more importantly, the most cash-strapped people, the people who are going to have the hardest time making the down payment, are also going to be the people who are going to have the hardest time paying back the loan. And that's the main reason why we have down payments, basically, right? Is because it sorts out the people who are most cash-strapped. So INOV et al. Found a way of measuring this. They looked at cases where the company changed its policy on down payment for different groups of people, and then just looked at how that changed the eventual repayment. Another example of this is even the sticker price. You might think, well, that's just price. But that's not necessarily true. If the sticker price turns into debt, it's not clear that people will pay that back. And actually, you might want to lower the price even if you don't get any more people to buy, just because that reduces the chance someone's going to default. But let's focus on the case of down payment. So here's what they found. As you increase the down payment, you can dramatically reduce the probability of sale. However, you also dramatically reduce the probability of default, as you sort out all the people who can't afford to make the down payment. And so it's actually optimal to set your down payment around here, even though it's dramatically reducing your profits. I mean, you're the number of people you sell to. Okay. But this basic logic applies in a really wide range of contexts, not just here. So, for example, you might slant your newspaper, as I said, to the right to appeal to the rich. There's the melodrama. Insurers often hold down the coverage in order to drive away sick people. And if they drive those sick people away to other insurers, that's a negative externality they have on the other insurers. Because they're trying to like skim all the good patients, skim all the cream. And so this is called the Rothschild-Stiglitz cream skimming distortion. And you'll explore this a little bit if you get to the last parts of your problem set. College is also, the University of Chicago right now is building all these art facilities to try to attract like more artsy students, right? So that's another example. Goldman Sachs makes people work like 90-hour weeks. Why? I think it's almost certain that that's like way past the point of negative marginal return. Like if you worked less, you would just have more sleep and you would be more productive at work, even forgetting about anything else you do in your life, right? But they work people that hard because they want to scare off people who they think aren't really dedicated to being investment bankers, right? Intellectual property, which we talked about, even though it has all the distortions, it might be a good way to reward innovations because it's going to be more valuable to products that create more value, right? Because they're only going to be able to get the profits if people are actually willing to buy their products. So it may be a more efficient way of rewarding products, and you'll explore that on your problem set. Industrial policy is going to be valuable, so like government interventions, if government's able to do a good job picking out companies that are likely to be good. And it's going to be really bad if government can't pick out companies that are doing good. So this basic logic that, the key thing that determines lots of things is how, the value you give to someone covariates with the benefit they give, just applies in a very wide range of contexts. Okay, I'll let you guys go, and then I've got some time, so I can